Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to use a grid. Grids are really helpful in helping you space out your picture, and they make pictures less intimidating to draw. Click on the link in the description below to download a copy of the picture that I'll be using in this tutorial. To make a grid, you will need a ruler, an HB pencil, and then of course an eraser. First we're going to use our ruler to draw the grid. So in this picture we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vertical lines. I like to use a ruler's width as my measurement, just because when you're doing a grid, you need to be really accurate. If it's not evenly spaced out, the picture is going to look disproportionate at the end. So whatever the width of your ruler is, make that the width of your squares. So to illustrate what I'm saying, I'm taking my ruler and lining it up with the bottom of my page and the left-hand side, and I'm just drawing a line going down. Then I'm going to line the ruler up with the line that I've just drawn. This makes sure that the lines are perfectly parallel, because we know that the ruler is perfectly straight. Next, we'll move on to the horizontal lines. So the horizontal lines, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, start from the bottom of your page, lining the ruler up with the edge of the page. Try and draw these lines as lightly as possible because you don't want them to be visible at the end. Grids make pictures a lot less intimidating to draw because you're just looking at the lines that are in that block. Now, as you can see, I've drawn all my vertical and horizontal lines and it hasn't taken up the whole of the page. That is fine because this picture lends itself to not taking up the whole page. It's just in one corner. Obviously, depending on the thickness of your ruler, your grid will be probably bigger than mine, perhaps smaller. Once you've got your grids laid out, it's time to start drawing. Now, it can be very overwhelming to look at this big picture, but actually we're just going to focus on one grid at a time. So if we start with the bottom left grid, it's just 2 lines. Don't worry about the shading for now. So we're just going to do the outlines. And when you're looking at the block, say, okay, well, that's halfway. And you can see this leg is in the left half and the other leg is in the right half, and they go all the way down to the bottom. So you can use the size of the block to help you as well. So we're just drawing 2 lines. Okay, then you can lift it up and move on to the next block. This one, if we divide the block in half, you can kind of see the 2 legs join together on that about halfway up the block. So bring these 2 lines together and let them meet about halfway up the block. So if you find it less intimidating, you can do this, or you can just look at the whole picture and work your way across it. So I prefer to see the whole picture so that I have an idea of what I'm drawing, but I use the grid to help me make sure I'm drawing it in the correct place. So like here, I've drawn the back of the elephant's leg, but I'm going to draw the front now, the knee. So I know that this knee can't go further than my second block. And you can almost use it, it's almost on that second block, about halfway up, maybe a little bit more. So just draw the horizontal line coming down, and this one coming up. And now in the next block, it just goes up. And you just keep doing that, drawing the lines that you see in each block. This one, you can see his elbow actually comes back to the edge of the page. This leg finishes in the bottom half of the 3rd block. So I'm just going to put it into that 3rd block just a little bit. Even though you're using a grid, you still need to have a look at it and say, oh, does that look like a leg? Maybe it needs to get fixed or smoothed out a little bit. Right, we can see this block's empty, so we leave that one out. Then the next block has got the trunk and part of the tusks in it. So the trunk comes down about in the first quarter or so of the block. So in the first quarter, we're going to draw our line down, and then just before the end of the block is the other end of the trunk. Don't worry about the tusks for now, just draw the trunk very lightly. of course, and then we will add the tusks in a moment. The trunk goes up 1, 2, 3 blocks, and almost at the top of the third block, it stops, it meets the top of the trunk. So use that as your guide. It's pretty much straight at the back. In the front, it's going to start going into the 4th column of blocks. So it needs to get wider. Right, now we in this row here. I'm just doing the outline. So whenever you're drawing a picture, first get the outline of the picture and then add the little details on the inside. Okay, and again, just another straight line up about 1/4 of the way. You just need to keep counting the blocks because you can also make a big mess with grids if you're not concentrating. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, in our 6th block, the next one, we're going to start curving back. So almost at the corner of the 6th block, we're moving across. And it's going to the top of the 6th block, again about 1/4 of the way in. Okay, and then the head starts to dip again. In this block here, we're going to be drawing the base of the ear. So it's a line that dips down and goes up. So it's almost like we're just drawing a triangle in the top of that block. Dips down, goes back up, and it goes to the corner again. Okay, the tip of the elephant's ear just pops out in that block there. So we're just going to draw a little line popping out. Not more than 1/4 of the block. Okay, this block we've got a line, a diagonal line going down and ending about 1/4 of the way across the block. So this just helps you break the picture down into little lines, and anyone can draw a line. Right, here in these 2 blocks from the back of the ear, we're just going to draw a little bit of an arc that, again, it's maybe 2/3 of the way up this block. So if you're not feeling secure about it, go up this block and say, okay, there's about 2/3. That's the little mark that I'm aiming for. And it probably starts halfway up this block. So halfway up this block where the ear is, make another mark. And here, it's maybe just under 2/3 of the way. So that's just under 2/3. Now you have these 3 points to draw your arc, and you just join in the dots. Okay, so grids can help you just break down the picture into something really simple. Okay, this is again a little triangle here. When I look at this, I can see I've come way too far across with the ear. I should have a much bigger triangle in this block. So I'm just going to take my eraser and I'm going to have to erase some of that ear. This is why you need to press lightly when you're drawing so that you can erase mistakes quickly and easily. Okay, so actually it's probably close to 1/3 of the way across. So again, if you want to make a little mark there so that you know what you're aiming for, and bring it down. Okay, now that makes our next block work a bit better. Okay, here we've just got a line coming down in the bottom little corner there. So just continue the ears line. In our next block, the ear is starting to come back to the right. And it's almost like 2 steps. Okay, the first step is probably 2/3 of the way down the block. And then the second one goes off to the next block. So again, if you want to make a little mark around 2/3 so that you know what you're aiming for, and it just comes down, goes in. It's not going to be a perfectly straight step. It's going to have a bit of a slant to it. And then our next curve starts at the edge of the block, comes down and goes off the block. If you want to take your pencil and draw over this worksheet, it helps train your brain how to draw it. So you just draw it on the picture and then take it to your page and try it again. In the same way that you learn how to write, you can learn how to draw. You can train your brain. Right, and we've got another one coming down here. Okay, I'm pressing quite hard so that you can see the picture clearly, but you should really be pressing as lightly as you can so that if you look at it and realize there's an error, you can easily change it or adjust it. Okay, we're coming into this block now. There's another fold or crease in the ear around, I'd say that's 2/3 of the way through the block and a little over halfway down. So again, I've made myself a little marker that I can follow. Some people really battle with grids And I must say, personally, I don't use them. It takes a long time to draw a grid, and it can sometimes get a bit confusing. But other people love them. It just depends on your personality and your strengths. If you're a really neat person, then you find it easy to be meticulous in particular. Okay, we're moving into this block now. I've made an error there, and I'm just going to rub it out so that it doesn't confuse you when you're watching. So in this one, we've got kind of a triangle shape, a bit of a skew triangle going up. So I'm going to draw that. It's going to come into the block that's there, and then we're going to drop down. We're meeting the top of the leg now, so you should be meeting that leg that we drew earlier. Another fold in the ear, and now the tip of the ear comes down into this block that we drew the leg in earlier. Right, then we bring it all the way up. As you're going along, it's always good to just put down your pencil and have a look and check that you're still on track. Because if you just keep drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and only check your picture at the end, it's a lot more work to clean it up and fix it. So if I have a look here, things are looking pretty good. The only problem I'm having is this line I've just drawn is taking up more than half of this block. And if you compare it to the block on the original, it actually should only be taking up a third. We need to draw the tusk there too. So I'm just going to erase this. So take some time to just check your drawing, look at it block by block, and make sure that you're still on track. Okay, so I'm going to make an end mark or a goal for myself. That's where I need to end my ear off. And then I'm just going to curve my line up to that ear. If you want to do that, you can. So here, the ear ends roughly halfway or almost in the middle of this block. So in the middle of the next block, I'm just going to make a dot, and I know that's where I need to aim for. Okay, and then it almost curves back. And that's the top of the tusk. Okay, so again, this tusk is going to take up a third of the block on the right-hand side. And it has got a bit of a curve to it. It's not a straight line. It's going to go down into the next block, come out just past halfway. Right, now it's time to start joining it to the trunks. So we're going to draw the curve down to where this trunk is. And then it comes past halfway down, so a little bit past halfway. I'm making a little mark for myself and drawing it, and then it's going to go down to the bottom of the page about 2/3 of the way down the block. So that's how a grid helps you draw a picture. It just helps you break it down into little lines and marks. It makes it easier to draw the picture. Okay, this is going to take up, let's say 2/3 of the block, so go 2/3, aim for that mark, and now you just need to aim for the end of the tusk here, bringing the lines closer and closer together. The tusk that's on the other side of the trunk, obviously we can't see it, we just see the bottom part of it there sticking out, and it ends just shy of the first one. So take your pencil up, it's not at halfway, and you can make a mark so you know where it's going to end. It's coming from behind the tusk on this side. Okay, what we have now is the basic outline of our animal. Usually you would stop using your grid now and just do the shading. You can sometimes lose the movement of the line in trying to fit it in exactly as it is on the block. One last thing that we will do though is find the position of the eye, because that's quite an important thing to get correct. So the eye is, let's rather count down than up. 1, 2, 3 blocks down. At the bottom of the third block, is the top of the eye. 1, 2, 3. And the eye starts about halfway over the block. And it's kind of just a triangle. Usually elephants, they're quite wrinkly. And so they've got lots of wrinkles and bags over their eyes. And it almost comes down as a straight line into the fourth block. It's not going to reach halfway down that block. So that helps you get the position of the eye. And then it's almost just joined. Okay, now we are going to start adding in the shading. To do the shading, you want to get a slightly darker pencil, a 4B. You can also use a pen for this kind of sketching. So this is more your scratching and cross-hatching, you can see, and hatching. And it's fine to use a pen for that if you would like to. So I'm not going to reference my grid as much, and I'm just going to work on the shading. If you would like to practice your sketching techniques, you can watch our video on the best sketching techniques. For our shading, I like to start with the trunk because it's nice and easy. So the left-hand side of the trunk is going to be in the shadow, so it's going to have a lot more shading. And I'm just going to draw my lines in. I'll do a crosshatch to make it even darker. So this picture does not have very smooth shading, it's more the rough lines to show the texture of an elephant. So don't worry about making the lines all perfect. The scratchier it looks, the more it will make someone think of the texture of an elephant. Okay, and then we want to show some wrinkles on the other side. Don't draw a straight line for your trunk because it's going to make it look flat. You've got to draw a little bit of a curve to show people that this is a round object. So if I'm drawing two trunks here, if I'm just going to draw straight lines, it's going to make it look flat. But if you're shading with curved lines, it gives the impression of it being a little bit rounder. So we're just going to draw some lines on the trunk, adding a little bit of dark shading. This picture works really well for a pen sketch if you would like to give that a try. Right, let's do some wrinkles over the tusk. So we've drawn quite a smooth line here, and that's not really what an elephant's like. So we're going to add in some folds. And again, shade with a curved line. If you shade with a flat line, it will look flat. You want to add a little bit of dark on either end. I'm moving down to the ear now. Also, there's going to be some dark shading at the base of the ear. When you're drawing, think about the animal and what it would look like. So what would be in shadow and what would be in the light. Now moving on to the eye. We'll do some folds that follow the shape of the eye around it, and then we want to shade that eye in quite nice and dark so that it sticks out. Don't color it in like a perfect triangle. That doesn't suit the style of this picture. So you need to go out of the lines on purpose to make it look the same. Right, the base of our ear is in this third block here. So 3 blocks across, 3 blocks down. So 3 blocks across, and that will be 3 blocks down from the top of my picture. We need to add a bit of shading to show the base of the ear. We're also going to show some dark shading in this little dip because it will be in shadow. The best tip I can give you for scribbling is to just not think about it too much. Just draw the lines, and they usually look better. It doesn't matter if there's small imperfections in a drawing. People will look at the overall result at the end. They're not going to see those tiny details where you went out the line. You can see here there's a tear in the elephant's ear. Well, there's actually 2 tears in this block. So we need to shade those quite darkly because we want the ear to stand out nicely. So really press hard, draw your lines close together. Make them further apart as you get out. The shading doesn't need to be perfectly smooth on this, so it doesn't matter if there's a sudden break between light and dark. This kind of a relaxed style of sketching, that's how you would do it. Okay, I'm going to add some scratchy lines along the top of the elephant there. Just coming back and darkening this area again. We really want the shadow of the elephant's ear to be nice and dark. So another trick when you are doing this scratching technique is to have really dark lines and then really light lines. If it's all kind of the same tone, it just looks like lots of scribbling. So the way that you stop making it look like lots of scribbling is to have definite clear differences between the light and the dark shading. Okay, let's just do the bottom of this ear. Okay, and we're going to add a little bit of texture to the elephant's ear because the elephant's ear, it is really wrinkly. And it's got lots of folds, so nice long lines going down would show those folds. Going to add another little crease there. Okay, again, as I said earlier, while you're drawing, just take a minute to stop drawing, look at your picture and see, are there things that are looking not right or not correct? And like I can see I should maybe do a bit more dark shading on this trunk here. Obviously, everyone will see something different in their picture that would need work. But just look carefully, even if you want to go block by block. say, how is my picture looking different to the example? And then just correct each block as you go through it. I'm going to make a few of these lines nice and dark. I'm pressing really hard now. Right, I'm moving on to my legs now. So we've already done quite a bit of shading on this area, but we need to move down to the knee. Again, I'm making a point now to press really hard because I noticed that that's something that I wasn't doing correctly earlier. The left-hand side of the leg is going to be in a bit more shadow. That's because we've made the left-hand side of the trunk in the shadow, behind the ear is in shadow, so that means the left is going to be the darker side and the right will be the lighter side. So we're drawing this elephant as if the light is coming from the right. If you would like some more direction about shading an object, you can watch our video on sketching. Not all of my lines are to show shading, so some of them are just showing the texture that these are wrinkly old elephant. And you can see, as I'm sketching it, the grid is kind of going into the background. You can't see it so well anymore. And that is what we want. We don't want people to see the grid at the end. Okay, we're going to do the other leg now. Now this leg really needs to be quite dark. We're looking at it from underneath the elephant. So the elephant's body is going to make a shadow over this leg. So you just need to press really hard, do those lines close together. Do a nice cross hatch on it. If you don't shade this leg dark enough, it's just going to look like it's part of the leg that's in the front. So we need to show a difference between the front leg and the back leg. I've already put quite dark shading on my front leg. Finally, we're going to move on to the tusks. So again, the left-hand side is going to be the darker side of the tusk. I'm doing some cross-hatching. Try not to cross-hatch with a straight line, but add a curve to it. Because the tusk is a cylinder shape, so we need to show the shape of it. Tusks also, if you look at them really closely, have some lines on them. So just draw a couple of lines going down the length of the tusk. And again, the tusk that is on the far side needs to be darker. There should be a clear difference between the two tusks. Otherwise, again, they'll just melt into one and look like one big blob. And then we just rub out our grid lines and we have a sketch of an elephant. If there are any sections of your elephant that are still showing some of the grid line, you just need to go in and erase those. It might mean that you have to go over a few of your pencil lines again if you rub them out by mistake. Right, so I'm just going to go and fix a few of those lines, the mistakes. Try not to leave too much wide open space on the elephant. Done. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. In the next video, we will be looking at double point perspective drawing. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to my channel. We upload new videos every week.